Hello friends, Gary Goes and fellow poets. Welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that the majority of you at least are probably new to poetry and thus new to the channel. In this video, I'm going to help you make the most out of your time with your poetry and with us, the poetry community. So before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more poetry related content just like this. The entire channel is just poetry related stuff, so if you're into poetry, you're in the right place. So many people hear the word poetry and jump to boring, outdated fliff-flaff. But that really doesn't have to be the case. Take this channel for example. I like to think we keep things fresh and fun and light-hearted around here, particularly on my live streams. So in this video I'm going to go through all of my tips to help you make the most out of your time with poetry and actually enjoy poetry. That's the key word, enjoy. How to enjoy poetry. Tip 1. Find the style you like the most and don't underestimate this step, particularly if you're just starting out. I've compiled a list of collections that I think every new poet should have on their shelves, and I'll leave a link for each of them in the description. Okay, first of all, poems that make grown men and grown women cry. I've spoken about both of these collections and reviewed both of these collections, I believe, on the channel. Poems that make grown women cry are definitely on the channel, I know that for sure. Not only are these books filled with great poems, they also have really awesome introductions to each poem by famous actors or literary figures that go over the poem beforehand, so you're not going in blind and you don't have to do the heavy lifting of analysis by yourself. So it's a really great way to dip your toes into the world of poetry. Okay, my next collections are... I can't find them. I do own them. I would never suggest them to you if I don't follow it myself or follow my own advice. I just can't find them. I have multiple collections by Rupi Kaur, and I do have one of Atticus's poetry collection. I must have put them away for storage and I don't know where they are. Now, when deciding whether or not to buy one of these or both of them, Rupi Kaur or Atticus, you should know that there is a lot of discussion and a lot of debate in the poetry community about the poems that these two poets release. So Adam, why are you suggesting them? Well, it's important to open yourself up to as many styles as possible so that you know what you do like and what you don't like. Knowing what you don't like is just as important, trust me. Now, if whilst reading these you find that you enjoy them, then quite frankly, what others are saying, myself included. You have every right to enjoy whatever moves you. And then finally, it's also important that you open yourself up to more classical collections. You don't necessarily have to go with literal vintage books. Here I've got Keats, published in 1820, Shakespeare and Byron. These were sent to me by a subscriber. You don't have to literally get vintage books, but it's important to open yourself up to older stuff. I would suggest when looking for older collections, or older poets, I would go for 1800 or before. The 1800s had some amazing poetry and poets. A couple of the great poets to explore are Ovid, Christopher Marlowe, Shakespeare of course, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Edgar Allan Poe, Christina Rossetti, Emily Dickinson, John Keats just behind me, William Wordsworth. Any or all of the above are a great place to start. Okay, tip 2. Let go. Yes, it is as simple as that. Let go. As I've already mentioned at the start of this video, a big part of enjoying poetry is letting go of any preconceived notions about poetry. It's boring, it's fliff-flaff. Just let that go. Unless you were really lucky in school to have an amazing English teacher, the likelihood is that you were taught poetry in a stale, outdated academic environment, which doesn't work for everyone. Some it does, some it doesn't, myself included.
Don't tell anyone, but I used to skip at school.
Now look at me, singing poetry's praises from the rooftop. In fact, it wasn't until I found out that rockstar Jim Morrison enjoyed poetry that I allowed myself to let go and enjoy poetry. So poetry is cool and nobody can tell me otherwise. Let go and approach us poets with an open mind. It can transport you to whole other worlds if you just let it. And with that being said, the next one is incredibly important, so listen up. It will transform your enjoyment of poetry. Surround yourself by like-minded individuals, i.e. poets. Poetry is an incredibly intimate art form. Whether you're writing or reading poetry, it's the very gateway to human expression. There really isn't anything that comes quite as close. You're either pouring your own soul out onto the page, or if you're reading, you're receiving the very beating heart of another human being. But what about the space between the words and pages? The time spent away from reading and writing. Humans are social creatures, and they're passionate ones at that. Combine the two and find your tribe. For the longest time, this is the very aspect of being a poet and enjoying poetry that I lacked the most. Which is exactly why I created the world's most extensive poetry community, the Poetry Cove. On there we have a forum full of poets conversing, debating and just sharing their passion for poetry. So grab yourself a free account, www.thepoetrycove.com, and access our general and poetry discussions completely free. And then, when you're ready, you can upgrade to a bronze or higher account so you can start sharing your poetry, gaining feedback, and just having a brilliant time. I'll see you over there. Finally, I'm going to give you a brief rundown on how to really take in a poem. Now, I do have a completely separate video on poetry analysis, so if you really want to understand it, I will leave a link to that video at the end of this video and of course in the description box down below. What you have to remember is a poem is always written to carry a message and emotion. So I recommend reading a poem no less, minimum, 3 times. First, read it top to bottom as if you would any other text, anything else you'd come to, just read it through top to bottom. When you get to the end, then ask yourself some questions. What is it about? And how did it make you feel? And that's it. And don't overthink it. Honestly guys, don't overthink it. That's the purpose of just the first read through. Just read it and then at the end, what do you think it was about and how did it make you feel? Then once you've done that, you read it a second time, and this time you take it as slow as you can and you go line by line. And again, each line you ask yourself some questions. What image is this line painting in my mind? What does this line really mean? Remember, sometimes poems use what's called a metaphor, and sometimes what you read, there's a deeper meaning to it. So what does this line really mean? And of course, like the first read through, every line, how did that line make you feel? So, what does it really mean? What image does it paint in your mind? And how does it make you feel? Now that is the lengthy part of taking in a poem, right? Going line by line. But once you've done that, you still should read it a third time, and this time when you're reading it, you've gone line by line and you've really understood the poem, and so when you've read it top to bottom without stopping, you should have a deeper understanding of the poem and a deeper appreciation for it. So once you've read it the third time, you can again ask yourself a question: how has your appreciation for this poem changed? And that is how you enjoy a poem to its fullest potential. And that, my friends, is how you enjoy poetry, at least in my mind. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful and it moved you and it helped deepen your enjoyment of poetry in any way, I would really appreciate it if you could like this video. This year I really want to take this channel to new heights, and you can help me do that by just hitting that like button. It's completely free and it just takes a few seconds, but it would really mean everything to me. I also love hearing from you guys and do my absolute best to reply to every comment within the first 24 hours of upload. So if I've missed any key points, or you just feel compelled to express how much you loved this video, hopefully, then please do leave me a comment down below. Again, it all helps with the algorithm. Finally, in my mission to really take this channel to the next level, I'm looking to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. You guys are already doing amazing things. Any any target or goal I set my subscribers, you always smash it. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We are a poetry only channel, so if you love poetry content or you need poetry content, you are in the right place. Just hit that subscribe, turn on notifications and share the channel with your friends. As I say, this channel is all about poetry and all our videos are centered around poetry, such as this one, which is, as I've already explained, my video completely dedicated to poetry analysis. So if you're really looking to take your journey to the next level, hit that little thumbnail thing right now and go over to the next video and enjoy.